Carl and Liam here from Games, Brains, and Head-Banging Life. gbhblofficial.com for sure. And it's We Are Afraid of the Dark, our talk through of every single Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, as we do with Goosebumps, as we've been doing up to this point. It is episode 4 from season 1, The Tale of the Twisted Claw, directed again by DJ McHale and written by Chloe Brown. Oh, this episode has some complications around it, although some interesting factoids as well. So, obviously, this would have been something you know in retrospect, but at the time, you know, to watch it when it first aired. This served as the show's pilot episode. This was actually the first thing that ever aired for Are You Afraid of the Dark, airing as a Halloween special on YTV, October 31st, 1990. And then on Nickelodeon, basically a year later, October 25th, 1991. This was before it became a regular TV series, and now it's been put back in its production order as episode 4 rather than being its pilot. But it basically was, for most people who would have watched it back in the day, the first thing they ever saw for this show.
Well, that's not the best introductory episode, unfortunately, is it?
No, but it's also, you know, there are also some other little facts, as obviously DJ McHale is the director behind this, and said that the entire Midnight Society, all with the exception of Russ Hull, Gary, were replaced right before this episode was finally filmed. So they had a completely different cast outside of Gary, and just before it was filmed, they basically replaced everybody. I want to know what the story is there, because I can understand going, right, they're not very good. They're not very good. But bear in mind, this is at least six actors. All of them were terrible? Or why?
Yeah, what was it that made them decide to cut them? Maybe it was because Gary's the one that remained. Maybe he was the one that was like, "No, I don't like that guy. Don't like that guy." I think Gary's a bit of a tyrant off camera, man. That's what I reckon. He's got that look in his eye.
Well, there are things, I think is this the episode where he might say something that made me go, oh my God, but there you go. At the beginning of the episode, when David announces he has a complete story and he's going to read his story, Kristen states that it's been a while since David told a story. Except that makes no sense when you watch it now in production order, because literally the previous episode, David told a story, The Tale of the Lonely Ghost. So you can see again the issue in the filming order. Yeah, it might have been a while when it was aired the first time because they were kind of doing a continuity thing. But now in the production order, this is David's second story.
Yeah, that confused the hell out of me. It made me think that maybe are they telling additional stories off screen that we're not privy to, kind of thing, and that's why they meant that. But obviously, you've explained the real reason. So.
Indeed, and of course, this story is a clear reference, a very blatant reference to the Monkey's Paw story. If you don't know that, you'll have seen a variation on it. Simpsons Halloween special, stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, any more? Yeah, one more, but I'll do it after the cast. So the cast, we've got Noah Plenner as Dougie Freeman, Maxwell Mederosi as Kevin, Anne Page as Mrs. Clove, Linda Smith as Mrs. Freeman, Paul Stewart as Mr. Freeman, Jason Tremblay as Bostic. I recognize that name already, folks. Jason Tremblay. Yeah, Jordan Maston as the gym teacher and Christian Maston as Tony. Anne Page, who plays Miss Clove, was the wife of Aaron Taggart, who of course portrayed Zebo and Dr. Vink and other things such as in Goosebumps, the piano teacher and elements like that. It says was. I didn't go any further into that. But I presume it's because of death more than anything else.
Most likely.
See, as I said, David's second story, although we actually kind of do something different here, as we actually begin hearing the end of a different story, Eric's, so to speak. His is about Tony, a young boy who encounters a black-hooded monster in his dreams. He wakes up, thinks it's gone, only to find it right next to his bed, and obviously he screamed. We cut immediately back to the camp, where Kristen and Kiki scream because they got scared by it. And Eric leaves this story on a cliffhanger because basically he can't think of what will happen next, and basically he's going to save the story for another meeting. So it's an incomplete story.
So, what happened?
I'd say if I was them, I would be pissed. He called them all out there in the middle of the night, and he doesn't have a complete story. What a jackass!
Well, what happens next kind of changed how I thought it works. So Gary announced, look, it's almost lights out. It's almost time to end. And we haven't had a full story yet. And our meeting should not be called unless a person cannot think up a whole story. And I was like, okay, so this isn't like a weekly or a 2-weekly thing they plan. They contact each other somehow, presumably phone calls, and say, right, I've got a story. Let's meet up on whatever day and so on. I was like, oh, that's really, really, that's not how I thought. I presumed it was just a weekly meeting, and the idea was people just try and come up with stories.
I mean, that makes complete sense. What you're saying, what they're suggesting they do makes little sense.
Yeah, I know, because you could probably go like 6 months. Now, part of me is like, again, where I start overthinking this, and I'm thinking, man, that could be a really cool overarching story where they haven't met up for 3 months. And in those 3 months, a lot has changed with them personally. And then they can meet up and we could discuss that and see how things were developed. I mean, that's what I want, but I'm not getting that, you know?
Oh man, maybe that'd be cool. Like a sequel series one day where they have all grown up and they like come and rediscover the campfire and that sort of thing. And I remember those times, and then they'd come back as adults and they start telling like stories again or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm quite intrigued to eventually get to quite a lot of the later seasons, and particularly the revival season, to kind of see what, not necessarily like I'm expecting what you just said, but more am I seeing what hints and references that we'll be able to reflect upon and go, oh, that's kind of cool for that, and so on.
Yeah, because obviously, obviously I'm sure that Gary as the character remains, he's the one that is there throughout the entire series as the other ones kind of chop and change as they go. You do see him get older and stuff, so it's kind of cool in that way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, Gary is the last one standing. Yeah, so basically David intervenes and says, I have a story. The Tale of the Twisted Claw, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. It is the night before Halloween. 2 boys, Kevin and Dougie, are basically playing around, and they're going to tease an elderly woman, Miss Clove, who is alleged to be a witch. They knock on her door, and when she answers it, they spray shaving cream in her face. Obviously, this startles her. She backs into an expensive-looking vase, and that breaks on the floor, and the boys run away. Rather than being mad, though, she kind of walks out into the porch, kind of removes her glasses, and ends up smiling and then cackling. So you're kind of like, okay, she might actually be a witch then, and so on. Got some serious Mrs. Doubtfire vibes from this look, though. With the shaving cream in her face. Do you not think with the shaving cream in her face that looked like Robin Williams when he pushes his face into the yeah, you know it, yeah?
I know the scene, yeah. But that's true. So it felt almost like, I don't know if it had the age of the actress playing the old lady, but it kind of felt like they were exaggerating the way she looks, trying to make her look a bit older, maybe with like the hair and stuff like that.
I thought it was a wig, yeah.
Yeah, me too. So maybe you're getting the Mrs. Doubtfire vibe from that as well. Yeah, I really liked her unexpected laughter here anyway. I thought it was pretty creepy actually, and I was getting the kind of vibes that she's going to go out and kill some kids.
Yeah, I liked it because it was straight in. There was none of this whole like overarching talk and then we've got to meet them. It was like immediately they're doing something that's going to set up the episode. And it was like, okay, cool. I'm down for this. It keeps it kind of energetic if you're going to move fast. The scene then cuts to Dougie in a mask. Basically, he's trying to get his dad's attention by pretending to choke. I love the dad. He just does not give a fuck. He just literally doesn't give a fuck.
That's me as a dad.
Kevin arrives and he's in a hobo costume, and Dougie complains that you dress like a hobo every single year. But Kevin rightfully points out, still get the same amount of candy, doesn't change it. He's absolutely right. What difference does it make?
Ta-da! Cool mask. You're a bum. You're a bum every year. So you get the same candy. Come on, let's book.
Be careful and don't go too far.
I hear some of the candy's poisoned this year.
Exactly.
So the boys go out to trick-or-treating. But for some reason, Dougie doesn't really want to do it. He's complaining all the time that he wants to just go home. And when they end up passing Miss Clove's house, and Kevin decides, look, let's trick-or-treat there to prove, basically to prove he's braver or something, because the whole thing is they were wearing masks before. She wouldn't recognize them, but it would still be quite a ballsy thing to go and trick-or-treat it regardless. He does persuade Dougie to do it, and basically they ring the doorbell, and she invites him into the house, complimenting her costumes. Dougie does not want to be there. He's pretty uncomfortable. And Mrs. Clove says she's got a special treat for her first and only trick-or-treaters of the night. So given the idea that everybody's too scared to trick-or-treat.
I just have to jump in quickly and say that, man, the parents must have really screwed up as parents if they raised kids dumb enough to actually go into a complete stranger's house like that, the way they go in there. It doesn't matter if it's a sweet old lady or whoever. Yeah, bad parenting right there. I mean, you can't stop kids doing from what they're going to do. I get that. I mean, they probably have told them to not go in strangers' houses. I'm sure they're not terrible parents, but come on, kids. Silly.
Not even that, man. Like, you'd have this suspicion in the back of mind that, she knows it's us. And if we go inside, not that she's going to kill us, but she might extract some sort of punishment. That kind of thing. So she goes off to get them their special gift. And Dougie notices that the urn, the vase they knocked over, is still on the floor, broken. Which puzzles him, as if like it wasn't that big of a deal. Mrs. Clove, he can't go really further because Miss Clove walks back in with a box and opens it. And he kind of get a musical tune from it. And it's like a claw inside. And they're a bit like, oh, what's that? And she says, it's a vulture's claw. But she says it's just a wooden carving, but it's charmed. And whoever uses it, whoever has it, will receive 3 wishes. So, again, if you know your monkey's paw story, you know where this is going. Which is odd, because this doesn't really, I guess it said there's limitations and obviously budgetary things. And of course, it's still aimed at a young audience. They could never really do too much with it. But I think this is a complaint that often came up in some of our Goosebumps episodes, which is lack of imagination to what happens next.
What is it?
It's the claw of a vulture.
Ew.
Oh, it isn't real. It's made of wood. They say it's charmed, and whoever has it will get 3 wishes.
Yeah? 3 wishes apiece, or 3 for both of us?
Kevin.
Oh, I'm sure it means 3 wishes apiece.
Thanks, lady, but I think we'll just take some candy and call it a night.
Nonsense.
Yes, it's one of my biggest complaints from some of the episodes in Goosebumps. I'll go into why, as we discuss exactly what they end up using it for. Yeah, the lack of imagination. Yeah.
Dougie doesn't want the present, but Mrs. Clove kind of starts to insist. She's got a nice, strong, sort of sinister vibe here, where it's like, oh no, you should take it. You should take it. So Dougie does reluctantly take it, and Mrs. Clove warns them, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Yeah. Goosebumps episode, like season 1. Yeah, we cut to Dougie and Kevin walking down the street, and Kevin mocks Mrs. Clove as being a crazy old lady. Dougie's still wishing they could just go home. He just wishes they could go home, and the twisted claw apparently moves in his hand, which freaks him out. But Kevin tells him, look, it's probably just your imagination, of course. The scene then cuts to them walking in to a downtown area, which looks like fucking like 90s LA, the way it's lit and the alleyway they're in and stuff like that. I'm more expecting like Snake Plissken to pop out and start shooting up the gaff. And they run into a gang of masked teenagers in an empty lot sitting around a fire. A member of the gang pushes the boys towards the others, and the gang begins to threaten them. Then one of the teenagers grabs Kevin's candy. Kevin fights to get it back. He pushes the teenager over, and the boys run away, being chased by the teenagers. And Dougie and Kevin end up hiding in trash cans behind the bench, basically, to get away from the gang. This is just weird. It's just, it feels like a completely different scene compared to whatever's around the episode. This rant, like, where did they walk off to? Like, they know their way around their neighborhood. How did they end up here? Do you see what I mean? Like that kind of thing. It doesn't even make sense as if it was like a wish part of things, because that's not acknowledged. You just end up here.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah,
Looky here. Some trick-or-treaters.
Get some candy, boys.
Candy's bad for you. Gives you cavities.
Kevin's convinced that Dougie got his wish and they start to walk home. That's that. Move on. The story transitions to a school corridor with Dougie looking for his locker. Kevin walks up and teases Dougie with the claw. A girl then passes by and hands Kevin a flyer that mentions a popular boy at school named Bostic. What is with that name? Bostic.
What a name.
Indeed. And Kevin decides, look, if this claw is real, I'm going to use it to beat Bostic in the 600-yard race during field day.
Why do they always give these objects to kids in these shows that use them just the worst possible things you could ever use them for? And this is my main issue with this episode. And they're going to go further with it after this, but I won't go into my big rant just yet.
Yeah, I was very disappointed with this, but I've got another reason to be disappointed. I'll explain it. I'm going to talk through the actual race, and then I'm going to come back to why this was disappointing for me. So Kevin makes his wish, and the claw moves in his hand. The scene then cuts to the gym teacher, basically telling the racers to take the positions. Bostic wishes Kevin luck. So basically, the actor is the same one that was in The Tale of the Phantom Cab, the older brother, Denny. Didn't
even recognize him.
That was him. The race begins. Bostic is in the lead, but Kevin is able to catch up with Bostic until they're neck and neck. As they're racing towards the finish line, Dougie glances back at a tree in the distance and hears growling. A black dog, a black German shepherd, comes darting out from behind a tree, runs in front of Bostic, making him trip. Bostic falls down on his knees, and Kevin jumps over him and crosses the finish line, celebrating. Baffling. I was so baffled by this. Afterwards, I realized that Dougie was the only one that saw the dog. So basically, the dog was some sort of phantom and so on, that kind of thing. So basically, call it coincidental timing, but I'm currently working my way in a similar vibe to this sort of thing. Freddy's Nightmares, the TV show from the 90s with my wife, Lou. And a few episodes ago, we covered a very similar sort of section, which is about a locket that will grant you wishes and a runner who wishes... basically wishes on the locket so that she can beat her rival, but the locket, because it's a monkey's paw thing, ends up having her trip over a hurdle and break her neck and die. Obviously, it's a lot darker. It's Freddy Krueger after all. But the parallels to watching this and then being just disappointed that all it is a fell over a dog and then he wins. I was like, something's going to be a little more violent than that. Like, he breaks his leg at least. Not death, but he breaks his leg or something.
Yeah. Also, it's the sheer randomness of it, like, before when they get attacked by a bunch of weirdo strangers, and now this, like, of all the things, that's the best they could come up with. That just a dog appears out of nowhere, trips him over, doesn't even like bite him or nothing.
Yeah. Kevin does seem a bit guilty about it. Dougie mentions the dog that ran by and tripped Bostic. However, it does seem to have disappeared and nobody else seems to have seen it, or at least they're not mentioning it anyway. Yeah, this is a pretty boring episode up to this point. After a strong start, we've kind of fallen into a repetition. You already know where it's going. You kind of know where it's going. So basically back to the campfire. It's one of those. As Kiki mentions that Dougie and Kevin have used up one of their wishes. Glad she's keeping count because I bloody wasn't. And Gary points out, because he's so smart ass, that something evil happened each time. And I was like, hold up a second here. Right. I understand the evil aspect of the dog tripping up Bostic to help Kevin win, but that's only evil if Kevin gives a shit about his rival, which clearly he didn't because he wanted to cheat to win. But where is the evil act about, I wish I could go home, I'm done with trick-or-treating? So what, the claw led them the route they went into a gang? Do you see what I mean? Like, I don't, that's so fucking weird.
Yeah, exactly. Like in this situation, you'd have to have the person that's making the wish make something that they knew would somehow negatively, affect someone else. Like with the, well, meaning with the race, like it's not like he knows something bad's going to happen. Because before with those strangers, they're like they still don't even really believe that it works, kind of thing. So there's still like a lot of debate there about whether or not making these wishes will make anything actually happen. It's not like he knew it would something bad would happen. So that,
Of course.
yeah.
They don't even believe it at this stage, let alone an actual, thing like convincingly using it for their benefit. So Eric, being a smart ass, wish for $1 million and just take his chance. But Kirsten shuts everybody down as she is super eager, like her face about asking David what will happen next. Now, I wanted to go, oh, well, that's because she's totally into David and David's like her babe, that kind of thing. Except in the way it's filmed, that isn't the case because this is supposed to come before the previous episode. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that night, Dougie's parents go out to dinner. Didn't invite Dougie, apparently. Bit like that.
Classic.
Kevin comes over with his medal for winning the 600 meter race. Okay, a random school race you win a medal for? Okay.
Wish well used, I suppose.
There you go. Dougie is stressing over the power of the claw, but Kevin tells him to get over it. What does that even mean? And that's not even a good fucking insult. Get over it.
Okay, time for all my mini rant. It was at this point that I just kind of lost patience with the episode because it's just too stupid. If they're so divided about whether or not this object does these things that they are debating and arguing about, why not just use the object and try and see if it does or doesn't do that then? Why not make a wish to definitively prove if it works or doesn't? You're like, oh, well, maybe the strangest thing could be explained. Maybe the race thing could be explained. Do something where it cannot, without a shadow of a doubt, be explained other than the fact this thing works. One of the catmates even suggests that they would use it to wish for $1 million. Do that then. Then you'll know, do that. It really does annoy me at this point because that is literally the simple solution to their problem. Yeah.
It is that simple. You've absolutely nailed it. You could stand there together and go, right, let's think of something that would be mostly harmless, small and insignificant, just to see if it works. It's as simple as that. But I'm going to get annoyed in a moment as well because they argue about this. Dougie wants to return it to Miss Clove. Kevin grabs the claw and then wishes that Dougie would just lose his folks. That's the words he uses, lose his folks. Dougie's mad, yells at Kevin for making a wish about losing his parents, and the phone rings. And I'm like, oh, shit. This is something big. Something serious has actually happened. Dougie answers it, and it's the police informing him that his parents got into an accident and in hospital. That is not lost. That is alive, hurt, but alive. I couldn't believe they fucking chickened out on saying his parents have been killed.
Don't answer it. Hello?
Is this Douglas Freeman?
Yes?
This is Lieutenant Crothers from the Cooper City Police. I have some bad news for you, son. Your parents have been in a car accident. They've been taken to the hospital, and I'm afraid...
No! Who's that? Mom and Dad had an accident. They're in the hospital. It was the wish. No way! It was. You wished it.
This really reminded me of the episode Say, Choose and Die from Goosebumps, where you have, again, this camera. Everyone's bigging it up that if you take pictures of people and all sorts of things, bad stuff will happen, but then nothing that bad happens enough. Again, there's also a car accident that involving the parents, and it's just not enough. It's not enough if you want to really build this thing up as being so, oh, I better not make a wish because it's going to make this or that happen. So far, what we've seen is just not really hit the mark. Yeah.
That I would go as far to say it's more in line with, say, Cheese and Die Again, the second of them, which was even worse for the consequences of this camera.
That was worse because they introduced a way of undoing the things as well. So they kind of just obliterated the whole concept. So yeah, it was worse.
Indeed, go watch our video talk throughs of those episodes. So Dougie throws the phone to the ground, breaking it. And Kevin tells Dougie to wish for his parents to be okay. But Dougie refuses, saying every time they wish for something, something goes bad. And Dougie then says, I wish Gramps were here. He'd know what to do. The claw twitches and Dougie throws him across the room.
Stop saying you wish, but stop saying the words "I wish," you moron.
That's the killer word. The word "wish." Remove it from your mouth. Say "I hope" or "I'd like my grandfather to be here," but not "I wish for my grandfather to be here."
Well, so what's the limit on this thing, man? What's the wish limit?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be through. I did, you know what? In a better episode, I might have counted and tried to pay attention, but fuck that. Because I don't think this makes sense either. Is Kevin then remembered? Sorry, this one actually does make a little sense. Kevin then remembered that Dougie's grandfather, isn't his grandfather dead? As they see a car pulling up to his house. Dougie is excited it's his grandfather's car, but Kevin rightfully is a bit creeped out because I like this because you're like, okay. What he wished for is just my grandfather to be back. Now, you know what heads, it means his grandfather's back, probably in a memory of how he remembers to a certain age or certain thing, so probably elderly, and that's it. But obviously the twisted claw aspects means he's likely to be a zombie. That's more likely what's going to happen. That I didn't mind. I thought, okay, you've done this well. You're playing this anticipation up nicely.
His car. It's him. No! I want to meet no ghost.
Yeah, I do actually remember this scene where the deceased grandfather's car is coming down the road, and thought it was, from my memory of watching it as a young kid, I did remember finding this part quite creepy. But it's a shame it doesn't really lead too much.
No, it doesn't. They kind of have a scuffle trying to get hold of the claws. Kevin wants to make a wish, and the doorbell then rings. Kevin grabs the claw, gives it to Dougie, tells him to wish it away. And Dougie wishes that they had never broken Mrs. Claw's face, and the claw disappears. Have you ever seen, well, you have seen it. I know you've seen it, but I guess this is for people watching along. Have you ever seen the movie, the excellent, excellent movie in its own right, Wishmaster?
Mm-hmm.
Strong cast. Of course, that movie is... famously got the cheapest ending you'd ever have, which is basically, I wish this specific thing didn't happen. And the genie goes, oh, shit, oh, no, shouldn't have granted that one. Oh, no, undid everything, and that's that. This is basically what it is. It's a wish that undoes everything. But it doesn't work because it should still have a negative result. If the rules are everything has a negative result, there should still be a negative result to this one. But that is not the case. This undoes everything, except it doesn't really, because they remember everything. Because again, like if you're undoing everything, all your memories and everything that occurred, in fact, it almost like be time traveling to a certain degree. I know I'm overthinking this, but I fucking hate this.
Thinking too hard.
So yeah, the doorbell rings again, and Dougie eventually answers it as Kevin tries to hide away because he's scared, but it's opening and it's the parents. The parents are there. And you're wondering, why are they ringing their own doorbell? Well, actually, the episode does give a good explanation for that. Basically, they left their keys behind. And I was like, oh, really weirdly specific explanation for that compared to how lazy it's been elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like you'd think it'd be one of those things where you'd have the question and they'd just be like, oh, fuck it, never not. They actually give you an answer. So there you go.
Yeah. Dougie's happy to see her parents, hugs them, and his mother goes to get some ice cream. Dougie and Kevin look outside. Grandfather's car is gone. They then rush to the phone to find it laying neatly on the table in one piece. And when Kevin looks in his pockets, even the 600-meter medal is gone. So yeah, undone everything, apparently. But no, apparently it didn't. I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it. The doorbell rings once more. They briefly freak out. But when they answer it, sitting in the doorstep, they find the vase they broke. It's all fixed, with a note on top which says trick or treat. And again, okay, she's a witch, so I guess there's something like that. But if they never broke the vase, it means they never sprayed shaving cream in her face. So she never met them. She would have no memory. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's just so confused.
What does it say? It says trick or treat.
Yeah, I mean, I only assume that because she's a witch, I suppose she's immune to the powers of the claw or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I decided afterwards, at this point, I decided to look at this episode from a different perspective. And I thought, you know what? The claw was never, ever a cursed thing. It was just her. She's a witch. She's got magical powers. She basically fucked with them for a few days to wind them up. Every time they thought they were wishing the claw, she was just fucking around with it. Because even then, it makes sense about how their wishes came true, sort of. She magicked up a dog to trip him up. She led them into the gang area. Like, it's all these small things that I'm like, okay, actually, this would make so much more sense. The problem is, I am having to leap fucking high in the air to clear this in my head.
That's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, they do kind of cut to Mrs. Clove's house at the end with the door and gate opening, the wind blowing, and you hear some cackling in the background. And then the door and the gate close by themselves. And the end of the story, all the group around the campfire looking at David like he's the man. See their faces? He's the man. David is the man. Second story from him that has been shit. No more stories from David.
Their credibility is hanging by a string, man. I'm telling you.
Put it this way, the idea of trying to keep track of who's telling what, and I have the list written already, and I keep adding to it, is so that I can reflect on, like, tier list wise and all that, but also reflect on who the fuck sucked the most at this. And at the moment, David, considering he's the only one that's done 2, but both of them in stinkers, he's on the tear.
I think it would have been hilarious if, like, actually the show, the camp mates and stuff had gone completely differently, and they actually agreed these stories sucked, and they like disapproved of them every single time until maybe there was a story that came along and they actually did approve of. You know, to better reflect how people watching it probably would feel, like how we feel.
I am disappointed because you've told me already that, and told all of us that basically the running theme throughout is that everybody approves. Now, I'm not saying there should be a scene or an episode where everybody disapproves, but what I would expect is at least to have some dissenting voices every so often. Perhaps Frank, who's a bit more outspoken, kind of says, look, oh, that story was terrible. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I would like a little bit more of that. So, that, you know, just I think it could be more reflective. I guess, you know, but that would only work if we were furthering stories in the Midnight Society, because then it could be based around personalities.
Yeah, but then it's like, obviously they don't want to have the creators of the show not going to have people, like, characters actually written to openly criticize the episodes they're making, because that would almost be completely nonsensical.
Yeah.
So I understand why they didn't do that.
Yeah, it'd be absurd to do that. I 100% agree as well. It's just, you know, I'm an adult. I would like to see that perspective, but of course, that's just a personal thing. But look, I completely and wholeheartedly disapprove of this episode. I would have given him the thumbs down. I'd have thrown the bucket of water in his face in disgust at how stupid. That's the problem. It's got a creepy vibe thanks to Miss Clove's laugh and general vibe she gives off. I think the two boys, Noah Plenner and Maxwell Medeiros, are good actors, and I think they do the best they can with poor writing. But ultimately, the story and the beats, now it's put together, this all completely lands at the feet of Chloe Brown, the writer, I'm afraid. This is just a poorly put together story, and maybe it got chopped up for episodic length, and that's a big part of the problem. Maybe I don't know this, but based off this, it's the writing that's the issue with me. It's stupid, it's unimaginative, and it ends in such a poor fashion.
Exactly. I mean, there's just so much you could do with this concept that when you're doing it on this scale, this kind of budget, and you do so little with it, it's just always going to be disappointing. And they always set themselves up for that happening by even doing it in the first place. I just feel like it feels like a completely wasted opportunity. I don't think the boys in the story learned anything. So there was no morals, or like they learned a lesson at least. I don't think they learned shit because they don't even see anything and they don't even believe the things they see. So they have learned nothing. And also the witch, she didn't even know, other than possibly, like you said, that maybe the claw is bollocks, doesn't do anything, and she's just screwing with them. She gave them a claw, not even knowing what they would do with it. So if it does really grant wishes, she doesn't. They could have done anything with that claw. She's assuming they're idiots and they'll go off and they would use it for pointless things like winning school races. But they could have wished for $1 million, or they could have wished for like world peace or blah blah blah. They could have wished for anything, but she didn't know what they would do. So like, yeah, that's a bit of a flaw there for me as well. I think it's a pretty childish story on the whole, with little to no scares.
Worst episode for you so far?
I think so, yeah.
I think so too. And I realized at this point, this is our 4th episode, I was like, oh my God, the opening episode, The Phantom Cab, was just okay. The second one, Laughing in the Dark, is strong. And then we've had 2 bad in a row. And it's like, that is not a good ratio out of 4 episodes. And I was like, oh my God, I hope it gets better from here.
It's not. And I won't reveal what they were, but I did a while ago on the site, there is a top 10 Eye for the Dark episodes, and none of these episodes obviously appeared on it, but there are some really good ones to come, I promise.
Indeed, indeed. That is episode 4, The Tale of the Twisted Claw. We're Afraid of the Dark, are you? Let us know what you think of this one in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?